My dad sold my soul to the devil. Yup, it's just about as crazy as the title sounds. My dad is what you would call a macho man. All he wanted was sons. He lived and breathed for another Keller boy. Naturally, when my older brother was born, he was overjoyed. 3 years later, he begged my mom to have another son. When he found out they were twins, he was even more excited. He'd have 3 sons. So when my brothers and I came out, and he saw that I was a girl, he was despaired. I had always been his least favorite kid, and he never tried to hide it. Well, he named my brothers Anthony and David, which means priceless and beloved, respectfully. He named me Lilith, which means night monster. While my brothers and mom tried to soften that direct punch to the gut by calling me Lily, he insisted on all of us calling me Lilith, so I could feel the disappointment that he felt the day I was born. Clearly, him and my mom did not stay married, and quite unfortunately, he signed for full custody when Anthony was 5 and David and I were 2. And things just got worse from there. If he took Anthony and David out to eat or see a movie, I was to stay at home. He spent all his time playing sports with my brothers and wouldn't let me join, even though I, as a girl, actually showed a genuine interest in what he was doing with my brothers. And then, when I was 4, Dad got cancer. And from what I heard, it was supposed to be terminal. But that's where the title of the story comes into play. Yeah, he made a deal with Satan. 15 more years of life if he sold one of his children's souls. And big surprise, he chose me. So once I die, it's off to hell, no matter how little I sin or how much I pray. The first time I remember something happening to me was about a month after my dad made that deal. I was in a tiny, cramped room, trying to sleep on a bed I outgrew years ago, while my brothers and dad were watching a movie downstairs. And then I saw it. This thing in my closet. It was pale and gaunt, sunken eyes and a gaping mouth. Its long, bony fingers wrapped around my closet door. There was no question that this thing was a demon. I immediately cried out for my dad, who stormed up the stairs and gave me a proper beating for interrupting his movie with his kids. After that, he called me a little girl for crying and locked me in my room. As I cried all that night, the demon simply watched me from my closet, unmoving. Demons watching me were becoming a pretty normal occurrence. Sometimes it would be the pale, gaunt thing in my closet. Other times a dark figure would hover over my bed. And on bad nights, a horned figure with glowing red eyes would stare at me, taunting me through the window. After a while, though, I stopped being scared of them. One night when I was 9, the gaunt creature was back in my closet, staring at me while I read. He began to make this really weird, growling noise, to which I shushed him. Then he did something he never did before. While he would occasionally wrap his hands around my slightly ajar door, he never actually came out of the closet. Until that night. In one swift motion, he tore open my closet door and stood up fully, revealing he was taller than the ceiling itself. He bent his neck in an abnormal way to fit under the roof. I rightfully should have been shitting my pants at this moment, but for some reason I just wasn't that scared. We locked eyes for a while, which was more awkward than scary. So I just went back to reading my book, and he just looked at me, curiously, for some time. And this was, of course, until my dad decided he wanted to be a horrible person again. He threw open my door to yell at me for something or another. The entire time, the demon just watched. Thankfully, my dad left after just slapping me across the face. But I was just crying again for the rest of that night. The demon, who now looked at me with something more than curiosity, looked back at my closet door, trying to see my dad. As I did nothing but sob, the demon just sat down beside my bed, towering over me. Neither of us looked at each other for the rest of that night, and I just cried while he was just staring off in the distance. But at least I wasn't alone anymore, and that's all I cared about. From then on, things changed. I wasn't just not scared of the demons, I actively welcomed them. Especially the gaunt-looking one who just sat by me that night. He would sit with me whenever my dad was bad to me, or whenever I had boy troubles at school. He never talked to me, and he barely ever looked at me, but all I cared about that he was there for me. I even gave him a name. Papa. I remember this one night. I was 14 and upset because Jacob, this boy I liked, he didn't invite me to the Valentine's dance at our school. And on top of that, my dad had gotten into one of his moods and threw a chair at me. So I ran into the room, and I was relieved to see his Papa crouched by the closet. Papa! I cried, running to him. I know it was stupid, but I was calling a literal demon Papa. But I had no one else, and he was the only one who had ever showed me any sympathy. At first he stepped back, but as I cried harder, he looked at me in the eyes. And maybe for the first time since that night, he stepped out of the closet. But then he did something so surprising. He hugged me back. As I felt his icy cold hands wrap around me, I should have been terrified, but I was filled with love. Love for finally finding a dad who loved me. But one night, as I was reading To Kill a Mockingbird for my school project, I made a mistake. Papa looked curious, so I decided to read out loud to him. I guess I made too much noise, though, because... But then my brother, David, opened my door. Lilith? Who the hell are you What the hell is that? He screamed, and my dad came rushing up. Papa couldn't hide in time, and now Anthony, David, and my dad all stared him down. He stood up, revealing his giant stature, and David began to cry while Anthony froze in place. And my dad ran off to get a vial of holy water he had been keeping next to his bed ever since he made that deal. As I tried to run away with Papa, he stopped me and shook his head. We both knew it was too late. I cried, and I hugged him goodbye, and as my dad approached us with the holy water, he threw it over Papa. He let out a blood-curdling screech that could have been heard across the county. I watched in horror as Papa, who had stayed by my side all these years, fade to nothingness. There! It can't hurt us anymore, sons, he said, embracing David and Anthony in a hug. I just laid over Papa's lifeless body, uncontrollably sobbing. We were all so caught up in our own worlds we didn't notice something coming up behind us. He was large, even bigger than Papa, and had 2 large horns, a goat head, and a large stick in his hand. Dad turned around slowly, looking up at this thing, and it glared down at my abuser. Majesty,
We had a deal, Stanley. I granted you 15 more years of life on 2 conditions. 2!
It boomed in a loud voice, and I noticed David had wet himself. It was a misunderstanding, sir. My daughter...
You were granted 15 more years of life on the condition that I get your daughter upon her death, and you never harm anyone ever again. Do you understand?
Yes, I have it, I promise.
First you break a promise, and now you lie to his satanic majesty himself. Seeing you have not only harmed your daughter her entire life, but you have killed one of my best minions. You have broken my trust, and I'm breaking off our deal.
Please, no, I'll do anything, please, he begged, but Satan didn't pay any attention to him. Instead, he looked up at me.
There is one way. If Lilith, your daughter, and the one you cursed, forgives you, I will set you free and you will live the rest of your life.
My dad slowly turned to me and put on this fake smile. Hey, Lily. What about it? Look at me. I'm your dad. Your papa. I raised you. Don't you love me? I'm your dad. For Christ's sake. He was getting more agitated as I stared him down.
It's up to you, Lilith,
Satan urged. And then I looked down at Papa's body, just lying lifeless on the floor. And then back to my dad. Come on, you're gonna believe Satan or your dear old dad? He was pleading with me, but I just glared at him. My dad is dead, and you killed him. I will never forgive you. And with that, Satan turned towards him, grabbed him by the ankles, and dragged him down the hallway as this dark mist swirled around them. And I knew he was going down to the Neverworld. And in the faint echo in the background, me and my brothers could hear his screams fading as they got further and further away to a place where I knew he would never hurt me again. And as my brothers cried at the loss of their dad, I walked back to Papa on the ground and kissed his forehead. Goodbye, Papa, and thank you.